sort of talk about you've had a few problems with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, often when you're making like genre movies, you always hear of these sort of curse of the, you know, all the stories, all the problems they have when they're making it, and half the time you think, is this just marketing? Is this just, you know? But there was a lot of shit happened on this movie that made a few people very, very nervous amongst the crew when we were shooting it. But the main constraints were those of, you know, low budget independent filmmaking, which is we had, our schedule kept getting cut. So we started with 35 days, then went to 30, then went to 23. So we ended up shooting 23 days on this, which is fairly tight, you know, even on a low budget. And yeah, we had to replace our lead actress after the first day of shooting as well. So Rochelle, you know, the lead actress in this, you know, whenever I watch this movie, I always remember the circumstances. It sounds like something from our soundtrack. I always remember the circumstances in which she came to the movie, which was she read the script at 9. It was a Friday night. The movie was going to shit. It was about to close. Everything was going wrong. And she read the script in the hospital, visiting her father in Montreal at 9 p.m. on Friday night. She said yes to the movie. Told me later she hadn't finished reading the script, but that's another story. She got on a plane at 2 a.m. She arrived in Puerto Rico at 11 a.m. the next day. She hadn't even gone home to get changed or to pack a bag, so she arrived with just her sort of, you know, handbag. She went to the hotel gift shop to buy clothes, so she spent the first sort of week of the movie in track pants with Puerto Rico emblazoned across the arse in pink. She went upstairs to have a shower, came downstairs and went straight to the set and me, and that was the first time I really got to talk to her about the movie. And then the stuff we shot on the first day was all stuff when she meets Moya, so in the classroom, and all the rain stuff that we had under Bowser's until about 4 a.m. in the morning, and I had the producer saying, you've got a rap, she's getting sick, and you know, and so she came in these incredible circumstances, and you know, as I say, whenever I see the movie, and the last time I watched it was last week, we had a premiere back in Puerto Rico actually for the US opening, and I'm always amazed at not only how good she is, I think personally as an actress in this movie, and how she elevates the movie to a more kind of interesting psychological place than I think it would have been otherwise. But also the circumstances in which she came to the movie. So yeah, it was an interesting.
But with Stephen Moyer, obviously you had him only between True Blood series.
Yeah, Moyer we only had. I mean, that was the thing. We only had Moyer for. Originally, Moyer was interested. Well, I was told he was interested. I was told he was interested. You know, these people were interested, and they were interested for him for the role of the husband, the ex-husband, played by Ed Quinn. And I remember thinking, well, you know, because he comes with this True Blood baggage and this sort of sense of menace and darkness, I thought it would be kind of more interesting if you played the boyfriend, because then you're not going to know as an audience where the menace is coming from. You know, when you first meet him, because you know him from True Blood, you're thinking, there's something going on with him, you know. So the first time I spoke to him, he actually said, I'm more interested in playing the role of the boyfriend. And I said, well, that's interesting, because I think it's a better role for you. And so he got involved. That was how he got involved, and he just, you know, I knew him from True Blood. Although he's an Essex boy like me as well, actually. Grew up a couple of towns away, and found out we since have lots of mutual friends. But yeah, that's kind of how he got involved.
And let's face it, if you had actually shot in Glasgow, I mean, the atmosphere would be so more peculiar.
Be different. Yeah. Well, originally, I mean, the story behind that was just that the Sergio, who was a Glaswegian guy who wrote the script originally. This was based on a short he did 14 years ago called Rose, which was made for BBC Scotland, which we should probably put on the DVD or something. And it's interesting because one of the questions we got asked a lot in the States was a Frequency movie. He's like, you know, he kept getting asked, did Frequency inspire you for this? You know, the whole phone line across the ages. And and it kind of drove him nuts, because he said, no, it's based on the short I did, but by the time I got round to making the, you know, this is a script, it's a feature-length script. Frequency had already been made, and you know, he's a very funny guy. He's like walks around the DVD saying, look, I can prove it, here's the date on the BBC DVD. But yeah, so he originally wrote it set in his hometown of Glasgow, which is where the short was set, and couldn't get it off the ground. And then he changed the setting to New York, and that's when I was given the script. And then I got a call from one of the producers saying, could you set this in Puerto Rico, shoot this in Puerto Rico and shoot Puerto Rico for New York, which isn't as crazy as it sounds. They have 40% tax breaks down there, so they shoot a lot of stuff down there. So, you know, Men Who Stare at Goats, a lot of that was shot down there. Even a lot of Baghdad scenes were shot down there. A lot of Fast and Furious 5 was shot down there. They end up shooting quite a lot of stuff down there. So I went down there to have a look, and I was like, on my first visit, I thought, well, you could make parts of San Juan look like New York. If you put the camera in front of this building and didn't move it, or put the camera in front of this building and didn't move it. But then I just thought it was a shame, it felt like a waste, because it was such an interesting location, such an interesting place. I'd never been there before, and I felt like if we set the movie there, we could, tweak the backstories a little bit to set the movie there, and then we could change the whole, the whole feel of the movie, and we could bring in a different texture and a different taste than it would have been if it had been set in New York, and probably just would have been just another low-budget kind of thriller set in New York. So we ended up reworking the script to sort of, there's a lot of Puerto Rican references in there. Talks about Clemente, who's a famous Puerto Rican baseball player, and there's quite a lot of Puerto Rican references in there that we put into the script. But it also meant the palette of the movie changed. So it was always going to be a very dark movie, but if you see inside her apartment, you've got those great tropical sort of reds and yellows and greens and those sort of very rich colours that obviously wouldn't have worked. We wouldn't have had that had we been in sort of New York. So I think it helped. It started out as a financial decision to go to Puerto Rico, but it ended up being a creative one. And I think, I feel, at least made the movie a bit, helped make it a bit more distinctive and more interesting.
Anybody want to ask anything, please?
Yeah.
Awesome film, actually one of my favourites of the festival so far. So thanks.
Thank you very much.
I noticed the Universal logo.
Yeah.
Is it going to get the theatre release?
Pregnant pause. It's funny. We were just talking about this outside. This is a long way around to answer the question. At this stage, I don't know. Is the honest answer. When Universal bought it back in earlier this year, I was sort of super psyched. And it's a $2 million movie. We shot it 23 days, and it sold to great distributors. Sony bought it in the States, Universal bought it here, and all this kind of shit. And so I thought, great. As a filmmaker, I was very excited. And now, I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know, to be honest with you. I know they're planning a big home entertainment push for Halloween, and that seems to be their focus. I mean, and as a filmmaker, you want it to be about the creative decisions that are being made, but understand, I guess, from their point of view, it's about the business decisions. It's about like how much money we put into this, how much money, and it's so expensive to launch a film now, and it's like they talk to me about, we can put it out on 40, 50 screens, or we can take that money we used to put out 40, 50 screens and buy TV adverts for the DVD. So those are the decisions they're sort of thinking.
But it does have Stephen True Blood, you've got Rachel from Twilight. Yeah. So it's actually quite an exploitable title.
It seems like that. So, I'm not a marketing person, I'm not a, so it's sort of, my end is I just feel like I try and make the best film I can, and then it's over to them. And on the one level, it's great they bought it, and I think it means it will have a good long life. On another level, whether or not they'll give it the actual push, I personally like.
At the very least, all the plugging on Facebook.
Thank you very much.
There you go. Anything else?
Yeah.
You said it was originally going to be 30-odd days shooting.
Yeah.
And it came down to 23.
Well, 35 originally, yeah.
Yeah. That's quite a cut in a couple of days. How do you go about doing that? Did you have to cut anything out of the film?
Rip out pages.
I didn't rip out pages. They kept pushing me to rip out pages. The producers kept pushing me from a schedule point of view. I mean, the one they wanted to cut was the Fiesta, and I was quite adamant that we keep that because I felt that a couple of reasons. That was one of the few times I felt you got a real sense of Puerto Rico was in that Fiesta. Also, I felt it was important. For me, the emotional storyline between her and him was important, and I felt that, when he disappears, I mean, I remember editing this movie, and the editor said to me, "This is a fucking dark movie," and I was like, "You think?" He said, "Yeah, because everyone's going to be expecting Moya to come back at the end, riding on a white horse, and it's all going to be happy ever after, and there'll be the big crane-up shot as they're sitting in the back of the ambulance, talking about everything that just happened." And I thought it was really important to get this emotional connection between them so that you would feel wrenched, hopefully, when he disappears, hence the importance for me of the Fiesta scene, the love scene as well, which again, you don't always find in straight genre movies, and I was quite adamant to keep that kind of thing in there. So there were pressures to take things out. We just did things quicker, is the answer. I mean, that final sequence when Lorna pulls up, she comes through the hallway, to the kitchen, to the bedroom, to the bar, that was originally scheduled for 4 days shooting, and we shot it in a day and a half. So it was just like kickballing scramble, and it helped. Rochelle was a massive help because she did all her own stunts, and we were throwing her against tables and throwing on the floor. And, by the end of that sequence, she was cut, she was bleeding. We get in trouble for SAG. She was cut, she was bleeding, she couldn't speak, she lost her voice, and she still had 2 scenes to shoot, but luckily they were scenes without any dialogue. So she sort of really pushed herself, and that really helped, because if you'd have been working with a stunt double, which obviously means it often takes longer, and so that kind of stuff, just the fact that your sort of cast were willing to really sort of throw themselves into it really helped. And I mean, Lorna as well, who I knew from Drag Me to Hell, when she got involved, what we ended up doing was building again, there was a budgetary discussion of whether to keep her in Los Angeles and just have someone read off with Rochelle, and then put her voice in post. That was another big budgetary discussion. And I was adamant that we should have her in Puerto Rico. And what we did, we built a set for her, for Lorna, her living room that we never see. And we shot in this old warehouse, and we put in a phone line so that actors often talk about a lot of acting as reacting, and I felt very strongly for Rochelle, if you wanted to ground her performance in some sort of reality, she needed someone to react off in real time, rather than having myself or a non-actor just reading off the lines to her. And so we put in this phone line to connect the two of them, and we never rehearsed. We rehearsed the movements of the scenes of Rochelle, we blocked it and all that kind of stuff, but we never rehearsed the voice part of it. We never actually rehearsed the conversations, so that when Lorna spoke to Rochelle for the first time, Rochelle never knew what Lorna was going to throw at her. And we were recording them both live, and what we would do is I'd run between takes, run over to Lorna and say, suggest something she might do to really fuck with Rochelle, or to surprise, or do something a bit different, or, so she would do that, and Rochelle just wouldn't know what's coming at her. So I think, again, for me, personally, that helped keep her performance kind of a bit real and fairly authentic, and help create the tension, because part of the problems with the script, when I got sent the script, 60% of the movie is a phone call. So as a director, you're thinking, well, how do you make that interesting? How do you create tension when you've just got one person on a phone, and obviously you're limited to what you can cut to. There's not a hell of a lot of places you can go. So you're really trying to focus on creating a sense of believability and a sense of escalating tension through the visual, through the sound, basically.
I mean, your last film was Dot the Eye with Garcia Bernal. I don't know if you saw that. And this is a change, a shift for you. I mean, do you like doing genre movies? Are you going to do another one?
I do. I do like doing genre movies, and I want to do another one. I've written actually one called The Inheritance, which is kind of a companion piece to this in terms of its style. I mean, when I first met the producers on this job, I almost took myself out of the job, because they sent me the script, and I'd got sent quite a lot of. For some reason, I was being sent quite a lot of genre scripts, and a lot of them ended up with kids in the cellar getting hacked to death, and I was kind of like,
but we want to see this.
People want to see that. There's nothing wrong with that, but I was like, what can I bring to that? You know what I mean? What can I? And when I went to the first meeting on this, I said to them, well, I don't see this as straight genre. I see this as, for me, it's like, it's supernatural thriller with some horror elements. I don't feel like it's a straight horror film, for example. And these are the things I'd like to bring to it. And, I'm interested in like genre movies like, Let the Right One In, the Swedish, those kind of movies that, and it's not to diss all the other genre movies, because they can be amazing and all that. But it's just, I have to ask myself as a director, what can I bring to the table? You know what I mean? Be honest about it. And with something like this, I felt like I would. Your first job is to deliver a sense of tension, a sense of fear, and a sense of scares and all that. But within that, is there room for? I found her psychological journey, for example, a very interesting thing to do, be involved as a director. Like there's a question for me as whether this. I used to joke with Rochelle, this movie's just about marriage guidance counselling. And it's just really her, how to deal with an abusive husband. Not I'm suggesting you should kill kids out there. So it's always just a question of, do I want to do more genre movies? Absolutely. But I'm always looking for those that I can do, that I feel I can bring something that I can bring to the table, for the movie. So yeah, I would like to do another, I would like to. The thing about genre movies is so fun to make, is you can really play with kind of atmosphere, you can really get to play with sort of sound and lighting in a way that you don't often in other genres, and that's like a real sort of thrill, I think, for a director.
You've got to call it a time. There, I'm sorry. Matthew Parkhill.